is up, everyone? So we've done quite a bit on this machine, but this is something that I want to go over in detail. But first, before I continue, if you like what you see, consider subscribing. I post very frequently, go through a wide range of machinery. Eventually I can get to yours, or if you just enjoy hanging out in the garage, well, here we are. So subscribe. Anyway, now that that is done, does your hedge trimmer do this? I say hedge trimmer because all of them can do this. Any Stihl can do this. Echo, all of them. So this is going to be the same idea. We're just using this one as a test subject. Anyway, on. It's already been choked, or excuse me, been ran a little bit, but does it do this? Or maybe. So basically what it's doing now is it is just not wanting to continue to run, or if it does run, it does this. Dies. Give it gas, dies. Really hard to start. We do get it started. Doesn't run right, and generally not very useful. You can feather the throttle and you can get some useful work out of it, but it's really annoying. Technically, any 2-cycle can have this problem, but Stihls especially. There's a little screen in here. Let's take a look at it. Yours could be different. You see that screen? This one's pretty good. You can see through it in general. If this was plugged up completely black, then we would have a spark arrestor issue. And what that does is basically just chokes it, but in the wrong direction. It chokes it from the exhaust side. That's why it kind of runs like it's kind of on choke. But we don't really appear to have that problem. So, I mean, it could be cleaned, don't get me wrong. I think I might clean it just because I'm here, but so far that's not a problem. So now we're going to look at the air filter. Now I know for a fact this one isn't bad. I've already looked at it. It's not new, but it's not bad. If that's not bad, I'm going to look at the carb. You could look at a spark plug, but generally it's not going to be causing that problem. Could, but generally no. Now on the previous one, we've actually already rebuilt this carb. So, knowing that it's already rebuilt, if you haven't rebuilt it, you should probably consider doing that. Or replacing. These are generally fairly inexpensive, so if you do need to replace it, it could be cost effective, we'll just put it that way. So, imagine you did that and it's still doing this problem. Well, what do? Well, you have to get a screwdriver. See these screws? Those right here, these are adjustment needles. See these letters, high or H and L? That's telling you that the one on the left is high, the one on the right is low. That doesn't have those markings there. They're usually on the carb itself. If there's still nothing, the one that's closest to the intake is the low. They're all like that. So what did we see? Well, let's think about it. There was a lot of blue smoke when it first turned on. Blue smoke means a rich condition. That could have been just because it was cold and choked, so we're not going to worry too much about it. However, when we gave it fuel or gas, it didn't have any power, which could be it's not getting enough fuel or too much fuel. But since it's not pumping out blue smoke when I gave it throttle, but since it didn't really puff out blue smoke under throttle, it's probably lean. Lean means that the screw on the H side is too tight. So we're going to loosen it. Let's say 1/4 of a turn. I do think the low is a little rich, so we're going to richen it up or tighten it just a little, like 1/8 of a turn. So with that adjustment, we can kind of play with it. These are a little difficult because it is sharp, but if you have a different machine, the same concept will work for pretty much any 2-cycle, but let's go ahead and give it a try. Here we are. Let's try no choke. Now it's just dying. We might need that extra fuel. Now, when you do this, the fuel does have to be brand new. I don't care if it's been sitting in there for 3 months and it's clean, brand new. Go to the gas station, make a new tank of fuel. Let's just start over. These are usually one turnout for each. So we're going to do that. One for each. One and a half. Nope. 1 3/4. When I'm doing this, I'm adjusting the low. I'm going to turn up the idle. Try some choke. Not too bad. Lean it out. The idle's good. I think we're pretty good. So, revs up, idle's just fine. Here we go. We now have a good running machine. A couple things to go over. One, you should be doing this on a under a load, so this is a good starting point. Now, when you take it to a load, like go and prune something, if it's having a little trouble, go ahead and keep tuning the high. We barely even touched the high. The only time we even touched the high was when we set it to 1. That's usually a pretty good point for a machine this size, but it could be underpowered for the actual running of the machine under load. So if you are having a problem, go ahead and richen it up a little bit. Loosen that high. After you loosen the high, give it a try. And when I say loosen, I literally mean like 1/16, eighth of a turn. Very, very small changes. These don't take a whole lot of adjustment to do a lot of work or to make a big difference. So that's about it. Unfortunately, I don't really have anything that's needing pruning. I'm already done. It's the beginning of fall and all that stuff is done. So I don't really have a whole lot to fully test it. However, it's not pumping out blue smoke under a load or under full throttle. It's revving up very, very nicely. There's no bogging whatsoever. And it only bogged a little bit in the beginning because it was cold. Temperature will play a big key in this. You don't really want to do your fine tuning when it's cold. You want to do it when it's warm. That's why I'm going to let it run a little bit longer and then give it a try one more time. And that's it. So those are 2 tips. Once you get it at this point, you can, even if right now, if you want to, you could richen it up and give yourself a little more of a safety zone, which I very well might do. And do your final tuning when it's warm. Let it sit outside for a little bit. Don't immediately start putting a load on it. Get it nice and warmed up and then try and then do your final bits. So I think that's about it. The only other thing that could potentially cause this, if you've replaced the carb or rebuilt it, air filter, we would potentially look at the plug next. It's generally not the plug though. The fuel's good, we know that. If it's not leaking fuel from a cap, you know the cap's fine, so it's not like there's a tank problem. If it is leaking from the cap, try getting a new cap. These do need some pressure, so keep that in mind. And finally, if all those are checking out good, you potentially could have a motor problem. That's beyond the scope of this video, but that's also maybe 1 or 2% of the time. And even then, you'll probably get a good indication because you probably put the wrong fuel in. Let's face it. So, I'm going to leave you at that. Follow me on Instagram, SmallEngine101. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you have any questions, leave a comment below. I will definitely answer as many as I can. Generally pretty good at that. And I'll catch you on the next one. Have a good night. Okay, so one final thing I kind of glossed over. This is a real quick tune. I have a full video on tuning a 2-cycle. If this is a little over, not very detailed, it's kind of on purpose. Watch the tuning a 2-cycle. That's what this is. Watch that. But more or less, I did end up richening it up. And here we go. I'll give you a quick little view. I also tightened a screw that apparently came undone or something. The rubber part of the lock washer was bad and I replaced it. There we go. So what ended up happening is I was tuning it like this, and I noticed the fuel was a little low. I looked inside there and the fuel filter was halfway submerged, so it was starting to suck air. Reprimed it. It's good to go now. So wanted to point that out. That's another good tip when you're tuning it. Let it run a little bit on its side. It's because you don't know if, or excuse me, normal. You don't know if the fuel filter is going to be causing a problem. But with this type of machine, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. I need to move that fuel filter from the looks of it, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. You're going to want to find a place where it's always submerged. For a machine like this, it's probably going to be closer to this bottom corner. Unless, of course, you are holding it like this, then it's going to be out. But if you hold it like this, then it's going to be in. Like this, it's going to be full of fuel. So there's not really a good place for it. Unfortunately, where I had it wasn't a good place for it. Okay, now it's a real end of the video. Have a good evening.